Hello, welcome to this week's video. So today I'm going to talk about how to mount paper onto a board, a watercolour painting onto a board, and then finish it with cold wax, and that protects the surface. So there's no need for a frame with glass. You can just display it as it is, or you can get a simple box frame, which is what I'll get. Okay, so I'm just going to interrupt myself here to say that this is the kind of frame that you could use for these sorts of panels. Now, this frame is just an off-the-shelf frame from Jackson's, and it fits their 8" by 8" panel. I think I'm going to probably take mine to the framers, but this is definitely an option, and this is the sort of look that you can get when you mount your paintings on panels like this. Now, this is a small painting. It's 6" by 6". And for this demonstration, I've got another two small paintings which are both 6 by 6", or will be mounted on boards that are 6" by 6". So for one, I'll do a talk, I'll do a voiceover, and for the other one, I'll put the music up, and I'll just put text prompts at the end, just to go over the process twice. Okay, so this is what I have. I have my board here, and I have my adhesive. This one is a neutral pH adhesive. You can use other adhesives. Some people use acrylic medium. There's another one called Mod Podge that I've seen people use. So, you know, there's lots of different options, but this is the one that I've got. And here I've got a cold wax medium from Gamblin, and I'll be using that at the end. And then I've got a really sharp knife, a steel rule, and I've got a lint-free cloth as well, and I've also got a cutting board, and I've got some card which I'm going to use to protect the surface, and later I'll also be bringing in some heavy books. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so your paper needs to be at least a bit bigger than your board, and I'm just going to show how I cut mine to size. Okay, so the way I do it is I've got this frame here which is exactly the same size as my board, and I'm just going to put 4 pencil dots in the corners, and then I'll cut about 5mm to the outside of those dots. Now, for the purpose of this video, I'm speeding this up, but this whole process, I do take a bit of time over it because it's important to get it right. You don't want to ruin your art. So I haven't shown it on the video, but I have checked this quite a few times. Okay, so that's ready, and now it's time to get the adhesive onto the board. Now, some people put gesso on their board. This is a stage that I don't do, and I have looked into this quite a lot, and I'm satisfied that it's not necessary, but for extra protection, you could gesso the board. Okay, so I'm just putting my adhesive straight onto the board. And I'm going to spread it around with this brush. You can also use one of those plastic tools to do this. Now, I don't put the glue on my paper. Some people do this. I've experimented with it, but I just found it too tricky, and I actually found that just putting the adhesive on the board was enough. So I'm just spreading it around carefully there. You need enough to cover the board, but you don't want so much that it starts to run down the edges. If you do get some on the edge, you can just wipe it off with a damp cloth. And it is important to make sure that you absolutely cover all the corners and all the edges, because those are the parts that you'll see if the paper comes off. Okay, so I've speeded this end bit up, but that's done now. Now I'm working carefully but quickly as well, because the glue will dry. Now, my greaseproof paper is actually completely clean, so I'm just going to put my artwork on top of that, but you could get another piece of paper if you weren't sure. So this is the next stage. It's just literally to put your artwork face down, and then you put your board on top, and then you've just got a few minutes really you can slide the artwork carefully just to position it. This is why I'm always careful to make sure that I've got a more or less even amount on each side hanging over, so that I do know that it needs to be central in order for the art to be in the correct position. Okay, so I'm just checking it there, and it's done. Okay, so I've moved to a different table here. It's a bit dark, but I've got a really clean board, and I'm just gonna place my artwork face down, and I'm going to put some books on top. Okay, so I've come back the next morning and now I'm going to take these books off. Okay, so here it is, and it looks pretty well stuck to me. So I'm going to take it over to my cutting mat and I'm going to cut the excess off. Okay, so I'm over at my cutting board now, and I'm very confident that this is very clean. If your cutting board isn't clean, you can put something down, like a piece of card to cut on instead. So I've got my painting on the board here, and I need to cut off, I need to cut these edges here. So for that, I'm going to put the painting face down, and I've got a blade here. Now this is a new blade on this scalpel, so it's very sharp. You can use the kind of knife where you snap off the blade, but the important thing is that it's very flat, so I can get it right in to the surface of the board there. Now I'm going to change the angle of the camera to try and show how I'm cutting this. Okay, so I've changed the angle here, so hopefully you can see this edge that I'm going to cut down, and I want to get my knife right up to the edge of the wood, and I'm going to cut all the way along. I'm going to press down quite firmly, and I'm going to be careful not to cut into the wood, because that scalpel probably would cut off some of the wood. I want to keep the line straight. Okay, so here goes. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to do the same all around the board. Okay, so I'm happy with how that came out. Now, as you can see, the paper's stuck all the way around, and it looks pretty good. I have in the past put too much glue, and then it can be difficult to cut the edge straight. Okay, so now on to the next part, which is going to be to put the cold wax on top. Okay, so I've got my cold wax here, and I'm using Gamlin, but you can buy the same product from Dorland. I'm just putting some greaseproof paper down to protect my cutting mat. Okay, so at this stage you could spray a fixative before putting the cold wax on top. This would offer it UV protection, and some people say it stops the artwork from smudging. In my experience, this hasn't been a problem. I did actually speak to the people at Gamlin, and they explained to me that using a fixative would also mean that in the future you could take the cold wax off if you needed to restore the work or something. But at this point I'm not using this fixative. I might use it at some point in the future if I had a more complicated painting with maybe a mixed media or a very large painting. Okay, so let's get on to putting the cold wax. Now, I'm not using gloves, that's just because I don't have any, but actually if I did have some I would use them. It's not very nice to get products on your fingers, I don't think, and it's quite harmless, the cold wax, but it could have some chemicals in that might not be very good for you. Okay, so you just literally get a dollop on your finger and you just spread it on your work in a thin layer, making sure that it's fully covered. You need enough, but obviously not too much. I find just putting a little blob in each area of the painting works quite well. I really think for this you need to just practice. It's actually quite good to practice in your sketchbook first, or you could do something like make some bookmarks that you didn't care so much about before getting onto a bigger painting or a painting that you really care about. Okay, so I'm speeding this up here, but I'm holding it against the light to check that the whole thing's covered, and I'm also wiping away some of the excess and using that paper towel for my hands. Okay, so this is done now, and I'm just going to leave it overnight. So I've come back the next day, and this is dry now, so I'm going to get a very clean lint-free cloth, and I'm just going to buff up the surface. And this painting's quite small, so it's not going to take me too long. Okay, so that's done, and now I'm going to add one more layer of the cold wax, and then I'll leave it to dry overnight, and then I'll buff it up again a little bit tomorrow. Okay, so while I add this second layer of cold wax, I'm speeding this up, and I'll leave this overnight, and then I'll do a little bit of buffing up in the morning. Now I'm going to jump straight into the second painting now, and I'll put the music up and I'll go through it quite quickly just with some text prompts, and then I'll jump in again with both finished paintings at the end. Okay, so having applied the second layer of cold wax to both paintings, I've come back the next day and I'll just buff them up with my cloth one more time, and then they'll be finished. I'm not going to do that on camera. I've taken them into my kitchen. The light's a bit difficult today, but you can see it does make the surface of the paper really nice. It gets rid of some of the texture of the paper, which I think is quite nice. I really hope you've enjoyed this demonstration, and if you've got any questions at all, then please put them in the comments, and if you like the video, please hit like, and if you'd like to see similar videos in the future, then please subscribe to my channel. Okay, thank you, bye.